Welcome to Highs and Lows. I'm joined with two guests that wanted to remain anonymous, hence the being turned around, and hence why I look so small right now. Today, I wanted to talk about what are the benefits of drugs and why do people really do them and seek them out? What is there to gain in spiritual themes, and can drugs improve a person? Okay, what do you think are the benefits of drugs mainly that people do, other than just, medicinal ones?
Well, it expands your mind, lets you see a little bit further beyond yourself, and lets you understand the world better hopefully from a less egocentric point of view.
For the reason of why people choose to do drugs, in my opinion, is that everybody's brain chemistry is a little bit different, and there is no such thing as an average human being. So this is why everybody needs to enhance their experience one way or another, just to feel as though you are alive, Some people might be lacking in serotonin, for example, and just to kind of enhance that, you might take something that will give you that boost, whether that be legally or illegally. That's really up to the people themselves to decide, I feel. That there shouldn't be a legislatory system that decides whether something is good for you or not. There should be open experimentation by clinical scientists that figure it out, if something is bad for you or good for you. But it's ultimately up to the person who chooses to put something in their body.
That's another thing why we've been talking about personalized use should be decriminalized, which it already is in a lot of places, but that's a big question that people ask, because personalized use doesn't necessarily inflict anything bad to others. It can through domestic abuse or things as such, but I'm thinking that is like a step forward away from a lot of danger that comes with drugs, and it takes away a lot of opportunities from people for just possessing marijuana, for example.
Well, there's, I'd say, a big difference between drugs themselves. Like when you mention domestic violence, for me, psychedelics and natural plants don't really induce those kinds of situations too often. They do happen with maybe too high of a dose or the wrong state of mind, but narcotics more so affect a person's not sanity maybe, but good judgment. So I feel like in the conversation about drugs, there should be a line drawn between the actual harmful ones, addictive ones, or highly addictive ones, and then ones that really don't have that much of a downside. Because at the moment they're all bunched into one category.
It's understandable why it's so difficult to draw laws in these kinds of areas, because the drugs are so different, and it's so difficult to just find that line. How do you do it? It seems bizarre to think about the benefits that come from maybe some drugs like cocaine, for example. What do you think would happen with those, or heroin? And a lot of the time it is escape. And do you use drugs as an escape? Is that a benefit that you seek?
The things that you mentioned, like cocaine and heroin, for example, are something that I would not personally touch, because there doesn't seem to be a spiritual merit to that. But cocaine is used in the highlands in Peru, for example.
Well, not cocaine per se, but coca leaves.
Coca leaves, yeah, which contain cocaine, basically. But the whole point about cocaine is that it's difficult to transport coca leaves, so they have to use different kind of chemicals to extract cocaine itself, and it's easier to transport that way because it's just a pure white powder that weighs a lot less than you would have to transport low potency green leaves, for example. It would be just easier. But the reason why that is done is because it's much more beneficial in a financial way to transport that, to places that would obviously put them up their nose or however.
Talking about it being illegal, that's making the powdered version even more common, because if it's illegal, you want to be as incognito as possible. So you do like make stronger substances to have.
Yeah, that brings up a lot of danger. This you're trying to make it more potent because it's illegal, which is I think that's also like one of the main reasons why people do suffer from overdoses and so on. Because a lot of the time when you actually get a drug from a dealer illegally, it is not the drug that you paid for.
It's the potency's been raised, but at the same time, it's also been cut just to kind of increase the benefits of making it, like selling it. So you never know what you're going to get. How they determine how cocaine is, how pure it is that they start slowly to raising the temperature. So all the soda and all the stuff that they put inside starts burning off. So cocaine kind of burns at like 350 degrees Celsius. So they slowly start raising the temperature. So all the impurities burn off, eventually leaving you with pure cocaine, and that's how they find out how much cocaine is actually in a gram of cocaine. But as far as it goes, like coca leaves are being used to like battle altitude sickness, for example, and to give you a little bit more energy while you're walking up the mountains and stuff. While at the same time, heroin is a medicinal miracle, like just in pain relief, for example.
Yeah. It got its start in medicine.
Morphine, you know what I mean? Like.
But I wanted to answer your question about escapism. You asked if we feel like we engage in that. I'd say that occasionally I notice myself going into that. But then if I do notice that, I usually make an effort to stop that sort of mindset. And yeah, then again, like a lot of people escape with alcohol, which is completely fine.
Yeah, it's not really different from what you're doing. It's just happens the circumstances around that drug is different.
Also, the social circle or the values you have really influence that, and and society's viewpoints influence how you view yourself as a user of drugs. So if you have like a nice circle around you, and you create a good space, then it's absolutely fine. But if you feel like you are doing something wrong, or you don't have the information required, then it can get a bit scary and even out of hand, perhaps.
You can escape from a lot of things in your life, like through different means. Like you can overwork yourself just because you don't want to spend time with your family, you just want to stay out, or you feel like you have low self-esteem, so what you want to do is you want to earn as much money as you can just to battle that self-esteem without actually going into the depths of your own being and figuring out what it is that makes me feel this way, rather than trying to cover it up with money, eventually finding myself in the same hole. Even if I'm rich, I'm still have low self-esteem, What's the difference? There's like, you can try to fill that hole with anything you can find, and most people find it easy to do with drugs because they have this certain way of being able to change your point of view on life. Also eliminating these sort of needs for other people's acceptance, for example. The problem with like dissociative drugs, which is something that I don't personally do. The problem with that is that it's easy to get hooked on them. It's easy to find yourself in a hole that you cannot climb out of. But things more psychedelic in nature, they won't do that. They might be dissociative in the way that they will remove the ego, but then at the same time, it's a scary thing that it's still happening to you. You're still there. You still have your memories. You still have your thoughts. You still know who you are, where you live, who your mother is and stuff. But it's not going to guide you into a deep, dark hole that you're not going to drop acid every single day. I mean, you can, but you're not going to do that. It doesn't make sense. Your body won't accept it. Your mind won't accept it. And eventually it will have diminishing returns, if you know what I mean. The more you take them, the less you're going to get out of it.
But with more like narcotic type drugs, you feel like you need to get more and more all the time. So, as you said, with the dissolving of the ego experience, it's like, yes, psychedelics can be scary if you've never experienced this kind of point of view. But it's all, from my experience and from the experiences I've heard from other people, it's just like you looking at you, and if you're scared, then you're just scared of yourself or your subconscious thoughts, and like you might just be hiding something from yourself.
It's interesting that like a lot of people get to that place, like where psychedelics can take you through meditation and so on, because that's kind of what you're talking about. That's also what I wanted to get into, because I think that's a big benefit of a lot of drugs, which is spirituality, and kind of, you know, learning to sit with yourself and going through whatever is, you know, actually on your mind, which you might be neglecting most of the time. Do you indulge in spirituality, and how does that manifest to you, if so?
There's a funny story where they found these set of incense burners in a Catholic church. You know what I mean? Like they put the incense inside and the priest goes around and waves it back and forth with the smoke. Anyway, they found residue of hashish in there. So basically, like what happened over time is that we have become so intolerant of these so-called drugs that people are now scared of them, but spirituality and drug use have always been together. There's the stoned ape theory, for example, where you've obviously heard it, like I think everybody have by now, where the primitive humans started eating magic mushrooms and discovered their own sort of self, you know, and obviously the acacia tree in the deserts where that contained DMT that they used to smoke. So this is Moses and the burning bush, for example. The burning bush is an acacia tree full of DMT. So if Moses was near a burning acacia tree, chances are he probably got high as fuck. So, but the thing is, like, drugs and spirituality have always gone together. It's something that kind of gives you that feeling of the ultimate supreme is right next to you, and you're looking at it, and you feel like a child right next to the most godliest and the oldest being ever imagined. So that's what psychedelics do in high doses, at least. Like there's something else that you know that is beyond your capability of understanding, and therefore you experience God, whatever that might be to you. You know, some people imagine him as a person, some people imagine it as something that they cannot even imagine, and that's what it creates. Like for me, God is that which I cannot imagine being existent, but yet having to face the reality that it is there, you know.
And you brought up all these past like speculations of drugs and spirituality being connected, but even at the moment we have indigenous cultures who recreationally indulge in ceremonies where they take different kinds of psychedelics. Like there's ayahuasca, there's cactus peyote. That's mostly in the Americas, I guess. And I know that in Nepal there's like a psychedelic honey.
The thing is, like, yeah, there's a lot of these indigenous cultures that we view as primitive that are still in touch with those medicines. And the problem with our society is that we try to be so punctual with these sorts of things that we go we try to find answers from science. And science can only reduce things down to their bare minimum ingredients. And that's why we were like, oh, look at this little molecule. This is what happens when you take acid. Like this molecule travels into your brain. We don't, like, experientially, it doesn't make any sense to me that you cannot explain it away.
There's a science that's missing to explain it.
You need to put religion and science together, because religion has a way of explaining things with stories, and spirituality as well. You explain things through stories when science goes into the very little detail and tries to explain it through detail and observation.
I feel like people in general just function through stories, and even science is its own kind of story.
We are stories, you know. We're humans of stories. You're a story and you're a story.
That's how we understand the world. That's how we remember things. Yeah.
So you just can't say that, like, oh, scientifically we must ban all these things because they're bad for you. No, we haven't, like, that's not the point of these things. It's to wake us up to a possibility that there is a greater future and a greater possibility for human beings all around the world.
When we talk about opening up the discussion on these things, if we look at countries that have already done this, like the main example being the Netherlands, they use it for, let's say, for the government's benefit. They can tax it. The people are free to use it in specific locations. They have more education on it. They have more experienced, let's say, guides, and it's generally safe. Also with Portugal, when they decriminalized drugs, I believe that the amount of people who got better from that. Instead of being jailed because they established like therapies and like counseling, it was really noticeable. So it seems insanely like idiotic to try to like stump it down into the ground and not pay attention to what the actual needs of the people are, which is to have a support system, to be curious. Curiosity is very much linked to creativity, and creativity makes you feel alive. So, like, just providing a good structure for people to experience different experiences, I guess, then safely would be the best thing to do, in my personal opinion. And my opinion comes from the fact that I've seen these examples working out all around the world. People are happier and people don't go to jail for being curious.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest problem that I have with it too. It's just decriminalization. Why are you stomping down on these people for having a problem? Like, you're punishing them for already not performing the way that they could.
Well, the problem I find with the situation of legalizing, I mean, if we're talking about it, I can only bring you up the context of Estonia, for example, because I really don't know the actual situation in other countries that much. But the problem with Estonia is the politicians don't want to put something like that on their name. Like something, if you were the first one to actually like say that we're going to legalize it now, then you'd be cast out from all the years and years of bullshit thought that has happened in Estonian politics. You know, you can't be the first one out because you're going to lose your career. And if you've been doing it for 40 or 50 years, your whole life depends on the fact that you'll be elected next year. So if you're going to be the one who says like, I'm going to decriminalize weed, or I'm going to like, you know, make it available for the public, you might get a few votes from the young people, but the hordes of older people that are used to the way things are just won't do it. You can show them all the research from MAPS, for example, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies in America, that have cured PTSD for a whole lot of people. Now, I don't have statistics at hand, but I could find them if necessary. Yeah, please look them up. Please look at MAPS, for example. What they're doing is they're administering MDMA for post-traumatic stress disordered soldiers who return from wars. And they have incredible rates of recovery. And what they do is they just have a few sessions, and usually after the first session, people come back and they're like, I have never been able to sleep so soundly in my life.
So did they go through the experience themselves? Like they re-go with a therapist through the experience?
Yeah.
That's how
they go into the therapy room, they get administered MDMA, and the therapist will actually listen to them and talk to them.
Guide them through their traumatic memories and
Guide them through.
experiences.
There's somebody who listens to you, understands you, and wants you to get better. Rather than what we have at the moment in Estonia, I feel like, which is an archaic method of post-Soviet psychology, which doesn't work. It's like sort of, if you're not going to get any better, please use these like shitty drugs that cause you to want to kill yourself, you know.
The important thing on why to use psychedelics in those kinds of therapy forms is because PTSD will just shut you down so hard. You will not be able to get into your psyche very efficiently. So these substances can be...
Because you want to forget, so you shut it off. Yeah.
So these substances are very useful for getting to the root of the problem fast. The therapist,
it's like getting back on the horse.
Yeah, the therapist provides you a safe space. It's controlled and tested and just efficient. It's not bad, it's beneficial.
Yeah.
And they're actually doing the same thing with magic mushrooms now as well. So these are psilocybe cubensis, which is an amazing possibility for people to do some healing as well. Because there's a lot of hurt going around in this world right now. There's the whole situation with teenage depression, for example, that we need to look at. These are the people that are going to be the future, you know, decision makers of tomorrow, and the parents right now are kind of like thinking, laughing it off, saying like, oh, these people are just kids. Well, in 10 years' time, you're going to be retired, and that kid is going to have to make the decisions. And do you want that kid to be a functioning adult, or do you want that kid to be a post-traumatized,
Child of capitalism.
Exactly. That person has never grown up because they're stuck in, whatever the hate was that brought them to that place of feeling depressed, And if they keep that person depressed, then there's the only two roads, whether they shut themselves off completely or it's suicide. And we can see that.
Or they turn like a little bit destructive to others is also an option.
Well, yeah, that's a cry out. Nobody can help you because there's no way to help you. Like other than like being able to give you the tools to be able to figure it out for yourself. And if nobody's actually like handing you the tools to be able to work on it, then what?
Yeah, but I feel like in those cases, still, the most important thing is the like social circle or the support group that you have around you. And I guess that is one of the hardest things to pinpoint on how you should do that. And I understand from that side why it's maybe not happened, because perhaps it's just a bit too risky if you don't know exactly what you're doing.
The problem is it's all in the underground. I mean, it's happening everywhere you go. It doesn't matter which country you go into. There's going to be some festivals where you can find the people who do this sort of thing. But they have to do it like in an underground way. You have to turn off the lights and be very hush-hush about everything, because otherwise, like, what's going to happen is that the police are going to raid you, and you're going to get a black mark on your name, and it's going to be very bad for everybody involved. So you cannot talk about anything. This is why right now we feel the need to be anonymous, is because I don't want the police showing up to my door the next day just being like, hey, so you talked about this taboo subject, like, I don't want to keep doing this. What's the point of this? Like, I feel personally very at a point or on an edge where there's like no turning back. We need to change our culture, and I feel like the youth are going to do that, whether or not the parents like it or not. And this is not a call for revolution, but this is actually a call for like action. We need to do something about this, and we cannot wait for our parents' permission anymore.
Why are you laughing?
It sounded like such a rebel speech.
I'm sorry, but I feel very passionate about this subject.
I agree. I'd say
it's bullshit that I see people have to take drugs that are like sort of 98% not going to work for them. Just because a psychiatrist isn't, it isn't possible for the psychiatrist to appoint them other things that might work, but just because our medicinal system doesn't want to fund it, it's not possible. What the fuck is all up with that? Like, who's making the money? Where's the money going to? Isn't it about the people, or is it all about just the profits?
Well, mostly about profit, I guess, at the moment.
But that's what I mean. Like,
it's fucked up.
That's what's fucked up. That's why it's all illegal, is because it's more profitable to keep it illegal. Even though Germany's about to change that. So
I haven't heard about this. What are you doing?
And end of this year, Germany is going to decriminalize weed.
Decriminalize weed?
Yes.
So personal use, that is?
Personal use. You can own up to 25 grams, and you can grow up to 3 plants. There's going to be cannabis clubs. So
that's not even decriminalizing personal use. That's like letting you...
It's pretty much letting you do what you want to do, without going crazy on it.
So not sharing it with everyone, but
you can go. You can start a club. You can have members. You can have up to. I'm not sure what the number is. But
that's what they're doing in the Canary Islands at the moment.
Canary Islands, Spain, doing the same thing. You have cannabis clubs where you can own a membership card. You walk inside and you can buy yourself weed, and it's perfectly legal.
Yeah, and like the people are gonna do that shit anyway.
Yep.
Why make it more dangerous for them?
Exactly.
It's so bizarre.
Well, recently we just had this thing where the government in Estonia banned HHC, which it's a type of it's
like a type of CBD weed.
They just like pretty much outright banned it, saying it's a public health problem, but nobody's been hurt as far as I know. It's just because they don't know how to work with a subject such as like synthetic cannabinoids.
And it's weird that they cut it out completely instead of still like experimenting with it, because like they don't cut out alcohol because it causes deaths and so on.
Well, the problem is it's a biblical thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, alcohol is mentioned in the Bible, so therefore it must be true. But that's I'm not making fun of religion at this very moment. I'm just saying that like our laws are so archaic that they stem back from times when the Bible was the main sort of scripture to law.
And the Bible's been edited by multiple people to serve their own needs.
Exactly. So
So
after a while, it's just like a sad excuse nowadays. And when we have the internet, we have like, you know, things going forward that are going to change our society forever and ever in terms of education and just understanding of each other.
And we're still keeping ourselves in this kind of unknown.
Exactly.
I'd say in terms of religion, the belief system is very good that it provides for people like a structure to rely on, but to make laws for everybody based on those texts that are hundreds to thousands of years old, it's a bit unfair.
It's like we're sailing into the future on an old paddle boat that's leaking, and like it's just because people don't want to like.
It's they've got nostalgia, a sentimental attachment to it.
Exactly. We don't want to invest and we don't want to do the right thing just because it's easier to continue doing the old shit that we've always have. Because that the laws and systems are built around to serve that thing just keeping going. Like, it's an old steam row. What do you call it? Like a steam train.
Yeah.
And we have bullet trains nowadays, but people don't want to jump.
But we don't have the tracks.
No, we don't have the tracks.
It's like the youth is, I don't know, it feels like this whole depression and just general mental health issue with the youth is kind of proof that there's a need for this new system to come around, but the laws are changing slower than the people.
Exactly.
Yep.
That's
Probably also what's causing the frustration and depression. In some
the
sense.
laws change quickly if it benefits the other people. You know, the laws change quickly if it benefits the people with money who have money to make more money. But it doesn't really change that quickly if it's like the good for everybody else.
Like, if you see that the world you're living in is like completely opposite to the way you would instinctively want to live, then that's gonna drive you a bit mad, I'd say. So it's a weird situation to be in.
Yeah, just have a final thought. Here's the funny thing that happens now. All the problems that we spewed out, well, I'm going to go home and smoke a big joint. So, you know, it's going to calm me down. It's going to give me perspective about how things are not that shitty that, you know, I'm not, right now I'm focused on the whole next 100, 200 years of the future. When I go home and I smoke a joint, I'm here and now. I get to focus. I get to look around me and be like, wait, it's not actually that bad right now for me. You know, if I have a warm house and I have water coming from the tap, and, you know, I have luxuries in my life which are considered like human rights, but, you know, these are still luxuries. So it helps me kind of focus in, tune in into the moment, not to lose myself into the forever future.
Into the noise of the like modern world, I guess. It's so, everything is so fast and just, I guess weed, like you mentioned, really helps bring you out of that. And especially in a cityscape,
But the
life is so
people
fast.
don't have that, you know, just because of the fear of the law. People don't do that, and you have to live like that every day, thinking about how the future is going to fuck you over some way, one way or another. So, and imagine like 30, 40, 50 years of that. What kind of a broken adult are you going to be in that time when you never have that sort of, you know, take back, assess your life?
You gotta relax and enjoy yourself and discover yourself and also express yourself. And
Explore your own psychology, see what you're made out of, just understand what you are or where you come from, or who you are, or what is behind the who that you are, because it's not something you can put into words, but it's experiential.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, I think let's end on that. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thanks for
Applause for
having
you.
us.
Bye.
Bye.